We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football. And you've just crossed over into the trend zone. Dave here with Casey on We Are the Football Dudes. Are you ready, brother?
Yes.
You just crossed over into the trend zone. It is Wednesday, October 11th, coming at you from Los Angeles, California. And it is a beautiful 69 degrees.
Dave, you always say it's 69 degrees. It could be the middle of
It
winter, 69 degrees.
just keeps coming up. All right, folks. In today's episode, we'll talk about the injury bug taking some big bites, a recently gruntled running back, and all of the awesome games coming up this week in the NFL. But before we get that going, Casey, get it started with some tasty nugs for the people, please.
Yeah, down to just two undefeated teams, the Eagles and the Niners.
You love
And
them.
the Eagles and the two of my favorites, Dave. Both of those teams entering week 6 without surrendering a point off their own turnovers. They're making a couple mistakes, but they're not made to pay for them. And clubs, road teams, 41 and 37. That is the best record for road teams since 2019. Home field, schmome field, Dave.
Not bad. Good stuff.
Mm-mm.
All right, Casey, the Trend Zone is now available for subscription on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe now. Casey, let's move on to the top trending stories. As usual, we're going to go in with some injury news.
Yeah, dude, this kind of looks like a fantasy roster. James Conner,
Yeah.
he's going to miss multiple weeks. He's on IR. Devon A. Chan, he's going to miss multiple weeks with a knee. Justin Jefferson, IR with the hammy. Anthony Richardson, IR, 4 to 8 weeks with the shoulder. Tank Dell, concussion protocol. Daniel Jones, he might have avoided major injury, but doesn't look like he's going to play. That might be a good thing for him and keep it in New York. But with the Jets, Elijah Vera
Ooh.
Tucker, torn Achilles.
Ugh.
Brutal, dude. This I know
I
we
know.
say it every year, but this
Yeah.
seems like the worst in a long time.
I know. Every year it seems like the worst. It may be getting worse every year. It's hard to gauge, really, but it's unbelievable. Like you said, that's a fantasy roster right there. And back to the Jets, though, losing arguably their best offensive lineman, and it's their weakest kind of position on the team, arguably. So pretty tough loss losing Vera Tucker there. Casey, there's good news tonight, and it is a running back getting away with the loot, right?
Oh yeah, dude. How do you get a disgruntled player gruntled? Oh, a 3-year, $42 million contract. We're talking about Jonathan Taylor. The Indianapolis Colts gets over 10 million signing bonus, 26.5 mil guaranteed. I guess he just had to wait till Ursay had a couple maybe a couple of lines and a couple of drinks in them and started opening up that checkbook. It's all good in the hood, baby. So he'll be back. I don't know how much we'll see him in week 6, but they're going to get him out there as soon as possible.
Yeah, some nutso comments earlier, like a month ago or whatever it was, 6 weeks ago from Ursay, but looks like he came to his senses and ultimately all's well that ends well in terms of taking care of his running back there. So good job.
Yeah.
All right, okay, so let's move it on to the game previews for this week. It is week 6 in the NFL. Wow.
Wait, did you
Yeah.
say week 6?
Yes, it's week 6 coming right up.
Slipping away.
Yes, it
Almost
is.
a third of the way through the season, Dave.
Yeah, it certainly is, Casey, and it's definitely flying by. But we're enjoying every minute of it as it slips away, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. Taking it all in, baby.
All right, get it started, Casey, with Thursday night football. What do you got?
Oh, yeah. The schedule makers like this one when they put it together. Not so much now. We got the Broncos at the Chiefs. Chiefs are 10.5 point favorites at home.
Yeah, Broncos coming into this matchup with a record of 1-4, having lost last week to the Jets in what must certainly be considered one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history, delivered by head coach Sean Payton of the Broncos. But I digress
There's
mildly
always
there.
time to roast Sean Payton.
That's right. The Chiefs are 4-1, and they have not looked particularly dominant, but they're great at playing okay and pulling out the win at the end. The win at the end, right? Stats wise, Denver's defense is last in yards, points, also, and versus the run, and 29th versus the pass. They're giving up over 36 points a game. They are disastrous right now. which is a recipe for an easy win for the Chiefs, even if they aren't playing their best.
Yeah, I think so, man. Those white, the snow-capped helmets were pretty dope last week, though.
The helmets look good. I thought a little too much white in general. Give me something a little more color in there on the uniforms. But I did
Too
like that.
much white is better than too much orange, though. We can agree on that.
Yeah, let's go there. We can agree on that.
All
Less
right,
orange,
Dave.
better.
We're going to wing on over to London and close the international series out for the year. It is the Baltimore Ravens at the Tennessee Titans, and the Ravens are 3.5-point favorites.
Yeah, and this Titans team, we say it each week, they are the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde team, playing alternately 1 week awful and then the next week great. At 2-3 and coming off a poor performance in a loss to the Colts, they must be due for a solid performance against the Ravens this week. So offensively, the Titans have not been able to run the ball like they have in recent years, and nowhere near it. In fact, they're one of the worst passing teams in the league also. King Henry is just 11th in rushing, and he's got a 3.8 yard per average carry. So he's averaging 65.6 yards per game. So just 2 TDs on the season for King Henry. Free agent acquisition DeAndre Hopkins has yet to find the end zone this season. And the Titans know how to win ugly, as we know. And the Ravens have shown that they can lose a very winnable game like they did last week, for example. So this might end up very interesting, and it certainly will likely come down to the end.
Yeah, you mentioned those Ravens losing, dude. They still cannot believe they lost that game last week. They didn't trail until the final 2 minutes. But that's what happens when you don't score any points in the second half. The other team catches up. But too many drops by these receivers, man, at least 5, including Rashad Bateman dropping a touchdown late in that thing, had to settle for 3, and then a late Lamar interception, although very sus effort from OBJ on that one. It didn't look like he went up strong. Ravens defense, though, playing really well. Every week, it's Roquan and Queen just dominating. They did get Marlon Humphrey back last week, and Kyle Hamilton, he's really good. If they can clean up these self-inflicted wounds and stay healthy, these Ravens are going to be in the mix down the road. They're too good to really have 2 losses, and they're angry. And now they're international, man.
All right, moving on to the regular early slots, Casey. It is the Washington Commanders at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons at home are favored by 2.5 in this one.
Yeah, these are a couple weird teams too. Desmond Ridder last week, one of his best games as a pro, 25-37. That's over 75%. Career high, 329 yards and a touchdown. But the number I like, 0 interceptions. That gave him a PR of a 111.2. He also had a rush TD. And this cat is 5-0 at home with 7 touchdowns. So you get this guy at home and he's playing better football. Put him right there in the nest, Bijan, instant impact, dude, rushing for over 5 yards a carry. Huge part of the passing game. Speaking of the passing game, London, Pitts, and Jonnu Smith, all with at least 6 catches last week. This defense is really solid too, giving up less than 20 points a game, less than 200 through the air, and just over 100 yards on the ground. Lots of talent for these young Falcons in a wide open division.
Yeah, no doubt. Got to get Bijan into the end zone, though. I don't think he's gotten there yet, which is surprising. Like you said, his impact has been noticeable and exciting. Let's move it over to this Commanders team. They're just 2-3, and they got worked pretty good by a previously winless Bear team that gave up 40 points in the process. So the good news, though, is that by falling behind in that game, the Commanders were forced to open it up on offense. And Sam Howell had a strong performance in that loss, setting career highs in completions with 37, attempts with 51, and completion percentage with 72.5, as well as passing yards with 388. So let him rip, right?
Yeah, I love that none of that went to Scary Terry McLaurin on my fantasy team. I was going against Fields and Moore and nothing for Mr. Robinson or Scary Terry. I know nobody cares, but
nobody cares about your fantasy, Casey.
What about my other league?
Yeah, no, we care less about that. Okay, Washington offensively, dude, has not established the run like they'd like to, gaining just 91 yards per game. That's 24th in the league. And the defense is second worst in the league at giving up points. Obviously, last week didn't help, but they're giving up 32 points a game. So that puts a lot of pressure. I mean, they're supposed to be a stout defense that can hold the team down and then let their running game take over. That whole equation isn't working right now for the Redskins. So at least they
Oh,
did
take a
see.
drink.
Oops, for the Washington football team. I
It's
stand
definitely
corrected.
not vodka in David's cup, and he's definitely
No,
not saying it
here
on
we go.
purpose.
Then. My performance will be deteriorating throughout the show, especially the more I talk about the Washington Commanders. But Casey, you know what? Who knows? Maybe this bodes well in the long run for the Commanders if Sam Howell has shown at least some glimpses that he might be the right selection here as that fifth rounder from last year, the rookie who hardly had any snaps coming into this season. So good news in that front.
Yeah, he's getting the reps in there, and you know, lots of things going around on that team, and he's one of the bright spots there. All right, Dave. Up next, it is the Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears. The Vikings are 3-point favorites on the road.
Yes, and the 1-4 Vikings have only beaten the winless Panthers, Casey, losing last week to the Chiefs. And after winning a ton of toss-up games last year, going 14-3, the Vikes are on the other side of those games this year, losing by 3, 6, 4, and 7. So all of those games right within reach, but just out of reach for the Vikings. Now, Cousins and the Vikings have got to figure out how to play without their superstar wide receiver Justin Jefferson, who's out for a while with that hammy. Cousins has been great. He's been, leading the second-ranked passing team in the NFL, but that just got a whole lot tougher moving forward. The run game has been a huge disappointment. They're gaining just over 80 yards per game to rank 29th in the league.
Ugh.
Defensively, they're just a bit below average in all the major stats. They've got 13 sacks, but just 3 takeaways on the season. So that's the good news, bad news defensively there. Here's the really bad news. Minnesota, -9 on the turnover ratio. That's the
Ugh.
worst in the NFL. Needless to say, they've got to hold on to the football and hopefully create some turnovers this weekend if they want to be in decent shape to beat this Bears team that's kind of like come alive lately, right? Last couple
Yeah,
games.
dude. I asked you last week how a despondent Bears team would play on a short week after that devastating loss. Well, they showed up like ravenous carnivores gobbling up commando picnic baskets, Dave. Justin Fields starting to heat up 4 TDs in back-to-back games. DJ Moore had 3 of those bad boys on Thursday, along with 230 receiving yards. That Bears offense, over 300 yards in the first half alone, and maybe a celestial Dick Butkus woke up those hibernating Bear defense and reminded them they were monsters of the Midway. In the
Right.
first half, they held Washington to just 84 yards of offense, 5 first downs. Speaking of 5, the Bears had 5 sacks last week, 2 takeaways, held Washington to 29 yards rushing.
Wow.
Speaking
That's
of rushing, these Bears are a little thin at running back with Herbert and possibly Johnson to miss this game. If so, it should be Foreman to get a shot. Bears, I mean, maybe they're waking up. It's not too late. I think there's going to be some wide open spots, wild card speaking, in the NFC.
It's not too late. All right, moving along. It is the Seahawks at the Bengals. Bengals at home, favored by 3 in this one.
Yeah, and the Seahawks coming off a bye and somehow still sacked Dimebag 5 more times. 11 freaking sacks versus the G-Men in week 4. Bobby
Wow.
Wagner, the ageless wonder, 17 tackles and 2 sacks. Jordan Brooks, 10 tackles and 2 sacks. And rookie cornerback Devin Witherspoon, a player drafted via the Russell Wilson draft capital, 2 sacks and a 97-yard pick 6. Offense is humming. Since scoring 13 points in week 1, Hawks are averaging over 30 points a game, just at 33, man. Getting healthy on that week. I think they can compete in the West. A couple big games coming up with the Niners later on, but handle your business this week if you can. We'll see. It's going to be a tough Bengals team that's starting to play a little bit better.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, how about Joe Burrow and the Bengals working their way back after a rough start to the season, as you just mentioned? Certainly, Burrow and the calf injury have contributed to that slow start. But at 2-3, They're just one game back from the division league. They are 0-2 in the division. Things started clicking last week, as you mentioned. Joe Burrow set season highs in completions with 36 and 78%, as well as passing yards at 317, TD passes at 3, and a rating of 108.1. So all his season best. So he pretty much matched the rest of the season combined almost, really. Jamar Chase, career high 15 catches. That's a franchise record, 192 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. So he obviously, the connection was made there between those two dudes, right? Those are his only 3 TDs on the season. That output from Burrow, again, matches his first 4 weeks combined. Mixon, only 1 touchdown on the season for the Bengals, though, so that's something to be concerned about. The Bengals offense is ranked first in rushing, is ranked, they're rushing for under 75 yards per game. They are last in total yards, unbelievable as an offense, even though they lit it up last week pretty good compared to obviously the first 3 weeks. Last in total yards for this Bengals team. Defense been struggling too, ranked second to last versus the run. So can't run it and can't stop the run. Those are kind of bad things, but who am I? What am I? Some kind of football expert? I don't know.
You don't know. What do you know?
Hey.
All right, up next, we have the San Francisco 49ers at the Cleveland Browns, and the Niners are 6.5-point favorites.
Yeah, Browns coming off their bye, but at 2-2 in week 4, they were last clobbered by the Ravens 28-3, and it was DTR at quarterback for the injured Deshaun Watson, who remains the quarterback at this point for this weekend, but it's not been determined really if it's him or if they might go to PJ Walker. Unfortunately, they lost running back Nick Chubb for the season a couple games back, but they still hope to keep up that strong running game with Jerome Ford and acquired Kareem Hunt. Defense is very good. First in points at 13.6 a game, second in yards and versus the run. So they're going to need to get a great performance out of that defensive unit and somehow put some points on the board to stand a chance this weekend versus San Francisco, one of the best teams in the league right now, and obviously seems to be without any real weaknesses.
Yeah, dude, we know the NFL is not linear and it is so week to week, but You mentioned it. The 49ers look like the best team in the NFL. 15 straight regular season wins, 7 straight games with a TD on the opening drive. They've scored 30 or more points every game this season, including 42 last week against the 85 Bears. I mean, the 3-2 Dallas Cowboys. Brock Purdy, career highs in touchdown passes with 4 last week and a passer rating of 144.4. Third QB since 1970 to win each of his first 10 regular season starts. Oh, and he's leading the NFL in passer rating at over 123. And even though the insert team here is the Super Bowl favorite, has been the kiss of death week to week, I don't see that happening to these 49ers. Speaking of kiss of death, Fred Warner went Michael Corleone on the Cowboys last week. 8 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception on his way to NFC Player of the Week. And as a team, 32 consecutive games without an opposing 100-yard rusher. Ooh. If they have a weakness, I haven't seen it, bro. I haven't seen it.
That is impressive, that last stat, Casey.
Sick.
All right, up next, it's the Saints at the Texans. Saints on the road favored by 1.5 in this one.
Yeah, dude, CJ Stroud, even better than these Texans could have hoped for. 20 of 35 last week, 249 and a touchdown, 0 interceptions, including leading that go-ahead drive in the last 2 minutes against ATL, man. He was so close. They were down 18-12, got the go-ahead by 1 point. They could not get the 2 point. Oh, brutal. He's the first quarterback in NFL history with 0 interceptions in his first 5 career starts. Wow. And his 186 attempts this season without an interception are the most ever to begin a career. And he's third in the NFL in passing with over 1,400, dude. So 2 touchdown passes in his last few games and 100-plus passer rating in 3 of 4. Seems like this NFL stuff is pretty easy for this guy. And, you know, there was the debate, is it Young, is it Stroud? So far, the early money is on Stroud, dude. You mentioned it earlier. Tank Dell won't be there this week, concussion protocol, and they've been easing John Mechie back in. Maybe they'll accelerate that process. It's also a good time. Dalton Schultz, he's heating up. What does Dalton Schultz know, Dave?
Nothing.
No, but he did
Hey,
have a season high 7 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown last week. The run game, not there yet, only 82 yards a game. But this defense taking on head coach D'Amico Ryan's persona, just
mhm.
putting up 20 points a game, and they are +5 in the turnover ratio. To have a rookie quarterback and be +5, pretty impressive.
Very impressive. They should give Schultz a little strudel along the way. All right, Case. Moving
That's
on to the
correct.
Saints. They are 2-3 and coming off their biggest win of the season, a 34-0 beatdown of the New England Patriots. Casey, Derek Carr, 2 touchdown passes, 0 picks for a season high 114.7 rating last week. Alvin Kamara knocked the rust off the previous week, but in his second game back after suspension, he rushes for 80 yards and a touchdown. So the New Orleans offense, though, overall below average in most the major statistical categories. They're scoring just 19.2 points a game, despite last week's nice output. New Orleans defensively is what they can usually count on, and they are above average in all major stats, including, most importantly, holding teams to just 15.2 points
Wow.
per game. That's fifth best in the NFL. So that means they just really need 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and they're generally in business to get a W. So pretty impressive defense this year so far for the Saints.
All right, let's move it on. We got an AFC South battle. It is the Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars, baby. Those Jags are 4-point favorites at home.
Yep, and the Colts are 3-2, tied for first place in the AFC South. Last week they were able to eke out a win, very close one versus the Titans, 23-17. But things are in flux right now for the Colts. Rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson, we talked about earlier, hurt his shoulder last week. He's on IR. He'll miss at least the next 4 games minimum. They're talking 4 to 8. Enter Gardner Minshew and his mustache, Casey. He's always been an overachiever and a gamer. So the switch from Richardson to Minshew likely changes the way the Colts offense will function, away from a quarterback run threat to more of a diverse passing attack. Minshew completed 11 of 14, 78.5%, and for 150 yards and a passer rating of 112.8 last week. So he came in off the bench and played very well. The offense got back Jonathan Taylor, as we mentioned last week, with that fresh new contract that pays him very well. Meanwhile, Zach Moss had a career high run in the football, 195 scrimmage yards, including 165 on the ground. Really
Whoa.
impressive. And 2 rushing touchdowns for Zach Moss. So, man, maybe they did overpay Jonathan Taylor at this point.
Ursay's
I
like,
don't know.
wait a minute. That was a drunken check.
Yeah. Oh, man. Luckily, he was using invisible ink. All right. Indeed, defensively is below average in general, but pretty bad, particularly against the pass. So expect the Jags to air it out and try and make it a shootout. The Colts on the other side would prefer to probably run the ball, control the pace of the game, and find a little Minshew magic in the end, Casey, pull out a W.
Oh, yeah, the former Jag. And what about these Shags? Duval, baby. Shags coming off back-to-back wins at Wembley and Tottenham, swinging out of London town games, baby. It was freaking them out, and now they're home playing great defense, but it's the offense that looks like it took a step last week. We talked about moving into that game that the defense was kind of holding them in, but it was the offense last week, dude. Trevor Lawrence, 25 of 37, almost 68%, season high, 315, had a touchdown. 0 interceptions. We're seeing a theme here. You keep that part of your sheet clean, you got a pretty good chance of winning a football game. And that was against a very good Bills defense. Calvin Ridley, dude, 7 grabs for 122 last week. Christian Kirk, he's looking for his 5th in a row with over 50 receiving yards. And Travis Etienne, dude, career high 184 scrimmage yards last week, 2 rushing touchdowns. So many weapons. I didn't even talk about Zay or Ingram, the tight end. So, I mean, Peterson's got this offense flowing. If Lawrence can continue to play like that, man, it's just a solid squad. 3-0 when they score more than 18 points. Dave, I have an
Ooh.
idea. Score more than 18 points.
Get in the end zone 3 times
Yeah, right?
and bet
Done.
bet Ridley in the over. Ridley.
Oh.
No, don't. All right, moving it on. Panthers at the Dolphins, and this one is a big number, Casey. Dolphins favored at home by 13.5. Wow.
Yeah, Panthers and rookie QB Bryce Young really struggling, but that Panthers D has been really solid considering they're not getting much help. Unfortunately, that defense is going against what so far has been one of the most prolific offenses of all times. We mentioned the Finns will be out, Devon Achan, but even so, this offense is scary good. And Dave, I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention Van Ginkel. Why? Because I like
You
to
love
say
it.
it.
Yeah.
Van Ginkel.
There you go.
All right, dude. We got the Bill Belichick Bowl. We're talking the New England Patriots at the Las Vegas Raiders, and those Raiders are 2.5-point favorites at home. Or three
Yeah.
now. It's up to
Woo.
3.
Yeah. How about the Patriots though, man? Obviously the last 2 weeks really ultimately a ultimate low point for this Raider squad, or excuse me, Patriots squad. Just really getting walloped the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, there's even talk about Will Belichick, get fired and nonsense like that. So we shall see how that all works. But he's still waiting for that 300th career win, Casey. I'm hoping it comes this weekend against this Raider squad. But I
I bet you
digress
are.
there. Raiders, they've gone through some tough times themselves there, but they were able to eke out a win last time last week. And then a couple of weeks ago, they gave up a monstrous amount of sacks to the Chargers. But I digress again. And I'm really concerned about that offensive line and Jimmy G, who's been fragile back there, taking too many hits on the season. It seems to be their weak spot. They haven't gotten Josh Jacobs going like they'd like to. I mean, certainly nowhere near the rushing leader last year. They just can't find him going. Guess what? Mad Max Crosby is just an absolute destroyer. So, Mac Jones, I hope you can make it through the game, without getting pulled, but you're going to have to figure out where Max Crosby is and plan to double team him all game long, or you're in
Remember
trouble.
last year in this game, the Patriots were going down. It was tied, and they did that dumb fumble, the backwards lateral on the last play of the game.
Oh,
Chandler
yeah.
Jones picks it, runs over Mac Jones. Raiders win, game over. I wonder if we'll see some hijinks like that this year. That'd be
Wow. I
brutal.
clean forgot that, Casey. That was embarrassing, right? What a that and from Bill Belichick and the king of situational football. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you just
For
don't see
that
it.
situation to ever occur on that squad.
They're going
All
to
right,
tank for
moving.
Caleb.
Oh God, imagine that. That'll give Belichick new life, right?
Oh, yeah.
Get another decade out of him. All right, how about the Lions, Casey, at the Buccaneers this weekend? Lions are favored by 3 in this one.
Yeah, Baker and the boys coming off a bye. He did have some time to pop down to Dallas and watch our Sooners kick the crap out of those Longhorns. This will be a throwback to the old NFC Central days. Not only that, the Bucks will be breaking out those old school creamsicle uniforms.
Oh,
We used to hate them, now we love them. Oh, time changes everything, doesn't it?
yep.
So far, dude, Baker's been playing pretty good football heading into week 6, a
Yeah.
101.5 passer rating, 7 TDs, the 2 interceptions, nearly 70% completion. Not sure if they're going to have Mike Evans back in this one. I sure hope so. He wasn't at practice on Wednesday, though, so that's not a good sign. And if he can't play, it'll be more Devin Tompkins if Evans can't go. But this Bucks team, they've been doing it on defense. They've held their opponents to 17 or fewer points in each of their 3 wins. And now they're expected to get back first-round pick defensive tackle Kalijah Cansey
Ooh.
and DBs Jamel, Dean and Ryan Neal. They're going to need all those cats to battle these cats. It's your turn now.
Yeah, right on. The Lions continue to roar, Casey. I'll go with the team with a record of 4-1. And the only loss was to the Seahawks in overtime back in week 2. Last week, the Lions tamed the Panthers rather, as Jared Goff completed 20 of 28. That's almost 72% for 236 and had 4 touchdowns on the game, 0 picks for a 132.4 rating. So Goff looks pretty dang good. Jahmyr Gibbs was out, so Montgomery took the Lions' share of the snaps there, Casey. Had 129 scrimmage yards, including
This
109.
offense is just scratching the surface.
Hello. There we go. And he's got his 6th rushing touchdown of the year last week. He's sort of the red zone guy anyways. Amon St. Brown, also a no-go last week. So rookie sensation Tight end Sam Laporta found the end zone twice, and Josh Reynolds also scored. Gibbs looks likely to miss another game here because of that hamstring issue, but all signs point towards Amon-Ra St. Brown returning to the lineup this week. This offense, you mentioned it, Casey, they are absolutely crushing it. 6th in yards, 9th in passing, 7th in rushing, 4th in points, scoring almost 30 points a game. And this year, Casey, unlike last year, the defense is much improved. They're ranking 9th in yards, 3rd versus the run, and giving up just over 21 points a game. This is above the league average right there. That's all they needed to do was be kind of an average or a slightly above average defense, and that really makes this team very, very dangerous. They're playing confident football.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's getting pretty damn good.
Okay, so let's move it along, Casey. It is the Cardinals at the Rams. Rams at home are favored by 7 in this one.
Yeah, both of these teams have flashed at times, just a little bit, but those flashes are few and far between. The Rams did get Cooper Kupp back last week. He had 8 receptions for 118 yards. But rookie sensation, man, Puka Nacua, baby, leading the NFL with 46 receptions, 2nd in yards with 572. Not such good news for the Cards. We mentioned no John Connor, Amari DiMercado. He had 57 scrimmage yards and a touchdown last week. You might want to pick him up on the waiver wire if you can.
Yeah, no doubt, Casey. And I like what the way Stafford's looking this year. He seems rejuvenated and healthy. He's 4th in the NFL passing right now, so he's pretty cranking right there. All right, should be an interesting game. Moving along, it is the Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Jets. Eagles on the road, favored by 7.
Well, if you ask Cookie, the Jets are going to kick the crap out of the Eagles. I just don't know if anyone told the Eagles yet.
Yeah,
no hangover from
keep it
the
a secret.
Yeah, no hangover from the
catch them off guard.
Painful, crazy Super Bowl loss. But much like Ozzy, the Eagles are flying high again, returning from their home game on the road out at the SoFi. It was Bird Gang Deluxe there last week. But guess who's gruntled now? A.J. Brown, 24 receptions, 433 yards, and 2 touchdowns in his last 3 games. And versus the Rams, Dallas Goedert. I know it's good. I like to say Go Dirt, like Joe Dirt. 8 receptions, 117 yards, and a touchdown. Eagles offense in the first half, over 200 total yards and almost 19 minutes in time of possession, 16 first downs, 7 of 9 on third downs, scored touchdowns on 2 of 3 possessions in the red zone, including a 4-play, 75-yard drive in the final 32 seconds of the second quarter, dude. They took the lead, and they never looked back. And that Philly O-line versus Aaron Donald, he had 4 tackles, no QB pressures, hits, or sacks.
Wow.
And that Philly defense shut those Rams out in the second half.
All right. Very impressive, Casey. And let's go to the Jets, though, who, the Jets and Jets fan, as you mentioned, feel very good about themselves. After beating the Broncos last week. Remind you, Jet fan, it was the Broncos, not the Eagles. All right. It was extra satisfying, though, Casey, on a side note, to beat Broncos head coach Sean Payton. And I know we mentioned this before. Due to his classless comments calling Nathaniel Hackett's coaching job of the Broncos one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL, I think that really satisfied the Jets to get that victory for Mr. Hackett there. Zach Wilson put together a couple of decent games in a row, Casey, back-to-back weeks. Last week, it was 19 of 26 for a career-high 73+% 225 and 26 rush yards. But it was Breece Hall, dude, that really shined. Season-high 194 scrimmage yards and 177 rush yards. That's his career high. He's pretty awesome. And 1 rush TD last week. Just to be fair, Jet fan, listen closely. The Jets offense is still ranked last in passing and on third down, which is
but other than that,
Jets defense decent, but perhaps overrated, especially versus the run where they are just 29th, and on third down where they rank 27th. So those numbers don't look good going against a Philly team that loves to run the football.
Yeah, Swift, man.
Good luck clipping the wings of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, nice. I like it. All right, Dave. Up next, we have the Giants at the Bills. The Bills are 14-point favorites in this one. This is also a rematch of Super Bowl 25. Those Buffalo Bills were favored by 7 going into that one. That run and shoot offense, high-powered Thurman Thomas, Jim Kelly, Andre Reed, stupid Giants, and Otis Anderson ate up almost all of that clock. Even so, the Bills driving down for the Scott Norwood game-winning field goal.
Right down the
Wide
center.
right. Oh, poor Bills. They never recovered, and they were still searching for that first Super Bowl victory. This one, not a Super Bowl, but I think they might get that W.
All right. The 1-4 Giants, Casey, are massive underdogs, and that is for good reason. Daniel Jones likely not to practice this week, and Tyrod Taylor is going to get the first team practices all week, and he's likely going to get the start in this one. The Giants, statistically near the bottom of the league on both sides of the football in all major categories, versus the 3-2 Bills, who are near the top of the league in all major categories, both offensively and defensively. But the run defense is perhaps their Achilles heel, where they rank just 25th at defending the run. Could a banged up Saquon get it going and make this interesting? Hopefully, since it's Sunday Night Football, and we'll all be watching because we love football. So come on, Giants, at least make it interesting.
Yeah, I don't need to be interested in that. Just Bill smash them and be done with them.
In bed early, right?
Yeah. Is there anything happening on Monday night, Dave?
Well, Casey, right here in Southern California at SoFi Stadium, they're putting on a football event.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is your Dallas Cowboys, Casey, coming to town to play my Los Angeles Chargers. And the Cowboys on the road are favored by 2 in this awesome event.
Monday night, the dude's divided, baby. Oh, the Cowboys coming off a real stinker and add injury to insult. They'll be without their 2 best special teams players. We're talking Kevontae Turpin, who finally got involved in the offense and had a touchdown. He's going to be out.
We remember him
Chargers.
from preseason, Casey.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
That was last preseason, but
yeah, you don't have to worry about it this time. And CJ Goodwin, who's one of our very best special team players, and it stretched to the defense too. No Leighton Vander Esch in this one. There's still talk that the IR, it might even be longer than that. There's been a lot of talk about the red zone woes for these Cowboys, but Dave, last week they were perfect. By perfect, I mean they never reached the red zone, so there was nothing to be bad about. That Cowboys offense suffocated by the 49ers, dude. Only 197 total yards. Tony Pollard 8 for 29 in an early fumble that led to a TD. Dak is not the only reason the Cowboys lost, but there's no way they can win without him playing better. He needs to play better, and he needs CD to get more involved. Only 4 catches for 49 yards last week, and I did not like his body language, but I didn't see any good body language by anybody on that Cowboys team last week. They brought in Brandon Cooks to stretch the field. He's got 9 catches for 73 yards on the season with a long of 16. Not that stretchy, if you ask me. It's just not good enough. The only thing I can hope was rock bottom, because I didn't see one Cowboy player I would have taken over a 49er last week. And if I could have only picked one player in that game, it would have been Fred Warner. That needs to change. There's too much talent on both sides of the ball. I need to see someone play with their hair on fire. This defense is not what the entire football world thought they were. Losing Trayvon Diggs, that was big time. A big-time loss, but not give up 42 points loss. You know what I mean? This team was built to rush the passer. Why are we rushing 3 and dropping 8 on a 3rd and 14? Purdy is great. I got to give him that, but if Purdy shredded this defense last week and went for career highs, what's Herbert going to do? And, dude, there is going to be a huge I told you so factor to this game. But who will it be? Which team is going to say it? Kellen Moore and your Chargers or my Dallas Cowboys? The only good news I have, Dave, is the crowd will definitely be pro-Cowboy. I like to call it Jero World West. And the Cowboys are 10-1 following their last 11 losses. And in those wins, averaging 35 points a game.
Now the Chargers have won their last 3 Monday Night Football games, Casey, with Herbert playing pretty well in those football games. Um, the 2-2 Chargers coming off a much needed bye due to a slew of early season injuries, and they're hoping to get back a handful of starters in this primetime game, namely on offense, running back Austin Eckler to make his first appearance
Oh,
since
great.
week 1. Yeah, good news, right, Casey? These guys are all coming back just in time, right? He had 164 scrimmage yards in that first game and a rush TD in week 1. They really have missed his explosiveness in the last 3 games out of the backfield. We've hammered the run a little bit, but we don't have anywhere near anyone else that's dynamic like he is, and certainly out of the backfield receiving the football as well. Chargers, Keenan Allen is on a crazy pace this year for an incredible season. He had the 18 catches and 215 yards, including a touchdown pass a couple of weeks ago, but he has almost, I think, half of his receptions are for first downs. He's an absolute chain mover, and he's on occasion seems completely uncoverable by defenses. It just seems like we could throw it to him on every down. And with Mike Williams out, we might have to. The other guys just really haven't stepped up necessarily, but good news, Joshua Palmer, last game the Chargers played, made an awesome game-sealing 51-yard reception to beat the Raiders. Quentin Johnston, the first-round wide receiver superstar at a TCU, he's yet to really make an impact at all. And tight end Gerald Everett has been literally MIA. I know, he was on my fantasy team. Was, keyword. Justin Herbert. Yeah, that's right. Justin Herbert, though, Casey, has been off to a great start this season. 71% completions, 1,100 plus yards, 7 TDs to just 1 interception. It was a boneheaded one last game. A passer rating, though, of 106.3. Entering week 6, too, and this is new, the Chargers ranked in 3rd in the NFL with 29 deep pass attempts, meaning throws of plus 20 yards down the field. Last year, that was something that they really lacked, and they haven't even gotten their speedster Guyton yet back onto the field. And even though they've only played 4 games, they actually rank 2nd in percentage of deep passes, those 20-plus yarders, in 18.8%. So the Chargers have really tried to push the ball downfield more so this year than they were able to do last year. Overall, the Chargers offense has been pretty dang good. They're 4th in yards, 6th in passing, 7th in points, and even 14th in rushing, something we were terrible at last year. So the Kellen Moore impact, it's not so blatant that that people are going nuts here, but it's there. We're seeing that difference that we're getting from his offense versus the Lombardi offense last year. Defensively, though, and this is Brandon Staley's specialty, mind you. They have been shredded early season, and they have seemingly improved, though, incrementally each week. The good news is that help is on the way. Derwin James is coming back. Joey Bosa coming back from injury, and that should obviously help out this defense. Last week, the Bolts were down their top 3 safeties and somehow held it together on the back end. In fact, Khalil Mack getting after the quarterback with the Chargers record 6 sacks in the last game, and I think that's tied for 2nd for anyone. It's a multi-person tie, but for anyone in the NFL in a single game. Tuli Pelotu, the 2nd-round draft pick out of USC, has been very impactful getting after the quarterback and making great tackles behind the line of scrimmage and stuff. Charger defense actually been very effective at rushing the passer. In fact, they're 5th in the NFL with 16 sacks on the season. And so they've only played 4 games. So in terms of sacks per game, they actually rank 2nd in the season, average only behind the Bills. And it's only like a 5th of a sack per game, basically. So the Bolts have been a bend but don't break defense, giving up a crap load of yards, right? But when their defense gets into the red zone, they're 9th best in the red zone at an even 50%. And that essentially won the 2 games for them. The interception against the Vikings in the end zone and the interception at, I don't know, the end zone also against the Raiders. The defense held right at the end after getting pushed around for a good chunk of the game. The Bolts defense, though, still 31st in total yards, 32nd versus the pass, 24th in points given up. They have to play better, and hopefully they will in this game. The Chargers are +5 in the turnover ratio, giving up just 1 fumble and 1 interception and collecting some turnovers. The Cowboys, though, counter that with +6. So it's going to be an interesting game. Obviously, when it comes down to any game, the turnovers are going to matter. Both teams are accustomed to being on the plus side of that. So we saw that pans out in this game. It's going to be obviously a highlight game for the weekend for sure.
Yeah, and maybe hopefully not as stressful as last time when it came down to a last second 50+ yard field goal by the Cowboys in week 1 a couple years ago.
Yep.
So if we could transfer this loss to the Raiders or the Chiefs or the Broncos, we would do that. But the sub plots are thick in this one. It's going to be a great game. Cowboys desperate for this. We were
Yeah.
like this. We had our 3 wins. You were down here trying to creep up. Oh
Yep. It's a big game for both teams, no question. We're at a crossroads at 2-2. Next week we're playing the Chiefs on a short week.
no!
So thanks, schedule makers. Appreciate that.
Yeah, good job, guys.
Okay. So many ways to check out the Football Dudes Trendzone, now available for subscription on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, go ahead, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Instagram and Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Football Dudes LA, and make sure you tag us across all social media platforms.
Or just go to footballdudes.com. It's all there for you. That is going to do it for this episode of the Trend Zone. We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football. For Casey, I'm Dave, and we are out of here.